What's up, everyone? Good evening. Welcome to Dogs Down South on a Wednesday night. Tennessee week is here. Tennessee week is here, man. I'm pumped. I'm ready. I got my blackout gear on. Man, I got my eat off the floor shirt on, man. I got my favorite blackout dogs hat. I'm just hoping for an incredible atmosphere, a Georgia win, and Juju to sign with the Dogs. But yeah, man, it's Wednesday night. Dogs Down South. We're here to preview Georgia, Tennessee. Obviously, we're going to talk about tons of things, as well as look at some college football playoff stuff. Also, talk scores around the rest of college football. We'll predict some games, call some wins and losses, so forth and so on. As always, I'm gonna add my man, Rich Man. How are you, Rich Man? Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. It sounded so proper, right? Like we were having like a 5-star dinner. But we probably just have a couple bottles of water, and I think you've already had dinner. So,
Give me a
man,
cheeseburger.
at a wing place? Cheeseburger at a wing place?
That's what I have.
All right. I dig it. I'll buy it. Hey, man, Georgia, Tennessee week. What a crazy, I don't know about crazy, but obviously so many things going on this week. I don't know about so many things going on with Georgia, but, Facebook, Instagram. If you haven't already done so, go follow us, Dogs Down South, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, trying to get to 1,000 followers. We have hit the 6,000. I'm sorry, not 1,000. I wish we did. 600 play mark on Apple Podcasts. So obviously, if that's your preferred method of choice, we had 2 new episodes, including Sunday Overreaction from Georgia and a team called Ole Miss that we're not gonna name much of anymore because we're pushing forward out of there. But Overreaction show went up on Apple Podcasts. Go check it out. Rich Man, it is Georgia Tennessee week, man. What's the first thing this week that just came to your mind about this week and how important? Obviously, we got 3 games that we all got to win, but how important is this week for Georgia?
Man, this is do or die. Our back's against the wall. It's going to be huge. It's going to be a night game. It's going to be packed in the stadium. It's going to be loud. You think it'll be a blackout?
I've seen multiple reports that student body and everyone is calling for a blackout. They have said the team is not expected to wear black, but they are asking the students and the fans to wear black. I've seen something as much as don't wear white, don't wear red, black.
You think Kirby would take the opportunity to wear black just to get this team in the right mindset? I know there's been some problems in years past, but everybody loves black.
Yeah, we talked about it before we came live, and we know Kirby's not a gimmicky guy. He's used things like if you need a jersey to get hyped up about a game, then you're at the wrong place. I mean, we know this. He comes from the Nick Saban area. I've never seen Alabama wear anything other than crimson and white. So obviously we know where Kirby, the coaching tree comes from. He thinks the same way. Here's what I would say. When you look at the situation with Georgia and how we have learned how in years past and present to persevere through a lot of different obstacles. This is a situation where Georgia, excuse me, clear my voice. This is a situation where Georgia has really had to come through some obstacles. We're going to talk about a lot of those tonight. Obviously, a lot of people who listen to this and that listen to podcasts all around Georgia football know that between Carson Beck, the offensive line play, even some of the defensive stuff was kind of taken to the shed this week. With everything going on, and my thought was, would it be something that Kirby could lean on to be like, look, how do we get them to be in a mindset of, hey, let's forget about what's being talked about. Let's forget about the Ole Miss game. Let's forget about the injuries. We have who we have. Let's forget about the play scheme we had against Ole Miss because it's done. It's gone. I mean, Ole Miss, God knows, Ole Miss said it. They schemed for us for 365 plus days, and that's fine. We could have probably done the same thing. We just didn't choose to. But at the end of the day, would it be something that could get the players' mindset in an area where they're excited? The fans are just crazy excited, and we all know what atmospheres are about because unlike some of these teams in the SEC, Georgia has had their fair share of atmospheres in their face this year. Would you not agree?
Oh man, we have. I mean, we've been on the road for what, over a month?
Forever.
Yeah,
I mean, I looked at it a minute ago, and we talked about it. Tennessee, this is only their third road game. They've only played 2 games outside of Neyland, and one of them lost. I mean, I don't know. That gives you any. I mean, is that what Vegas sees this week?
I don't know what it is about. We'll get into this a little bit more, but there's people out there in the national media, and also there's people in the SEC that really hate us, I think. Because what this schedule that we're running is just insane when you look at some of the cupcake schedules, so to speak, that everybody else has.
Feinbaum's been our worst enemy in some areas, but man, he really came, and like you said, we're going to talk about it a little bit. He really came to our defense as far as what in the world the College Football Playoff Committee was thinking. It's like you look at Georgia and they don't even know what Sanford Stadium. I mean, some of these young guys have not even they don't even really know parts of the stadium well because they haven't been in it enough. I mean, we played 3 home games this year, 2 against SEC schools, and they've been so far apart. I mean, these are back-to-back home games. I mean, what a great time to go back-to-back because we have 3 games that really make or break the season coming up, right? But geez, man, I mean, you look at the committee. We played Clemson in a neutral site, which was a top 10 team at that time. Clemson was. We played Texas on the road in Texas in Austin. It's the best win of any college football. It's the best win on the board right now. And
Exactly.
I'll argue with you all you want to. It's the best win on the board. Texas right now is picked to win the SEC as far as the College Football Playoff Committee is concerned, and the SEC is the best conference in college football. I'm not biased. I'm just telling you that's where we're at right now. So it's the best win on the board. So you look at that. That's on the road. You got Ole Miss. We just played a really good Ole Miss team, and they're ranked right now in the top 11. And at that time, they were ranked 16th on the road, and they're another SEC team that might make the playoffs. We're fixing to play Tennessee, who actually is ranked 8th right now per the College Football Playoff Committee. And not to forget a Kentucky team that we beat on the road at night, who beat this same Ole Miss team. So it's like, man, like where does it end for us? And I'm looking at some of these teams who barely have played. I mean, Texas. I mean, the SEC should be ashamed of themselves for what they gave to Texas, even Ole Miss in some areas. And so we'll talk about it. But I think the answer to your question is do I personally think that it would give a little bit of a oomph. It's more about forgetting all the talk, the Facebook chatter, the things that are going on around them, and just kind of something to bind them together. You know what I'm saying? It's like a Thanksgiving morning meal, and you're cooking that turkey or that your favorite, and you're like, you know what? I'm just going to throw a little something different at it this year and see how it goes, because we just kind of do this every year, so it might go well, might not. At this point, I don't think it's going to mess with us, as far as our
All things
mentality.
considered, I don't think it could hurt.
Right. I don't think it could hurt. Will it happen? I don't think so. But it'd be cool. It'd be cool. I mean, we need an atmosphere, man. We need an atmosphere. It's going to take 80,000, 90,000 to win this game this weekend. And that's including the 85 plus players that are on scholarship, 90 players. So let's hop right in tonight. So we talked about blackout, but Georgia, Tennessee. So Nico, big stories. Nico Iamaleava, right? Is he in or out? Questions you ask: is he in or out? Does it really matter? I personally don't think Kirby and Georgia care. What do you think about this whole situation? We've heard about it all week. They've been beating it up.
I think they plan for Nico, and if he doesn't show, then they're good to go. I mean, that's what I would do.
I agree. So I think I don't think Georgia cares. I think we're preparing for both. I think we saw how This other guy that I have down here, his name is I'm prepared. Gaston Moore. Um, not much experience, 201 yards passing this year whether it's been mop up or just last week's game. But Nico may be out, maybe in, who knows? But I do know this, that the road doesn't bode well right now for Tennessee. They've had 2 road games. They've lost one of them, and they've only scored a combined 39 points on the road. And the most passing yards Nico's had on the road is 179 yards. Okay. So once again, I tell you last week, and it's just flat out how it has to be. If we hold Nico to under 200 yards and we can keep Dylan Sampson at bay, I don't see how this is not a win. And we'll talk about it a lot more later, but I don't think Georgia really cares who starts. I also don't think for Georgia's sake, like, you need to look at it and be like, well, I don't want the committee to see that on Tuesday, because we'll talk about it later. But the committee right now is, I'll just say it straight up, like, they're acting a little bit high on Tuesday nights, in my opinion, about how they're judging some of this stuff. I mean, I've heard things come out like strength of schedule doesn't matter. And it's like, wait, whoa, time out. So you're telling me strength of schedule doesn't matter. So I can just get me a Texas schedule next year. Screw it. I ain't got to play.
Give me the cupcakes.
Give me some cupcakes. Let me go in the SEC. Because this year alone, I mean, hopping out there against Clemson, years past, Oregon, things of that nature. I mean, Texas, they're not trying anybody out there. They don't care about that. And neither does Tennessee. I mean, none of these teams this year, in my opinion, that are in the hunt, and we're going to look at it in a little bit, have spread their wings and played anybody other than in conference that have mattered. And so, Nico, 1,879 yards passing this year. I just think, man, a lot of that is him on the road. It's not that safety net of being in Neyland. Neyland is a tough place to play against other people, but it's a lot harder on you when you're getting screamed at and yelled at and the atmosphere is nuts. And I was in that stadium 2 years ago when they decided to prank phone call Stetson Bennett about 700 times the night before, and it did not bode well for Tennessee. And so I think the student body at Georgia has been challenged a lot about the last 2 games that we've had there. I think we've been challenged about our atmosphere, and I don't know, man. I think blackout. I think at night. I think the weather will be a little bit cooler up in Athens. Hopefully, it'll be dry. I think it's going to be an incredible atmosphere, and I think it's not going to matter which quarterback shows up, in my opinion. Any other thoughts on Nico? I mean, to be honest with you, like, I don't like Nico. I even have a note down here. I mean, Nico's thrown for 1,879 yards. Jackson Dart's thrown for 3,500, and we held him to 199 last week. Well, so in my opinion, like, we'll talk about what's going to win and what's going to lose the game, but I don't. The concussion conversation to me is probably like it's happening with Kirby right now. It doesn't matter. I got 2 quarterbacks. I mean,
the other thing too is if he's had if he's under concussion protocol, if he got banged in the head last week, he's going to get hit this week.
Yeah,
and he's probably going to not be anywhere near, even 90%. So, I mean that's where a lot of our team is right now. So,
right. Speaking of quarterbacks, Carson Beck. So obviously Carson, when you look back at the game last week, and we've looked at film study, we've looked at a lot of things that went wrong from last week. We're not going to do a lot of talking about last week. We're really going to give our viewers and our listeners a lot to go off of this weekend. We are, 2.5 days away from a really pivotal home game. But Carson Beck, how can Carson affect this game? What do you think after last week? Obviously, after his interception proneness the last 2 to 3 games, especially after last week and his comments at the end of the game and things like, what do you think? What do you think Carson's got going on, and how do you think he's going to look to affect this game?
I think if the offensive line will give him a little bit of get helmet on helmet with that first line and give him a little bit of cushion with a little bit of running game, and they'll give him a little bit of protection more than they did last week, I think Carson may have his best game ever, or best game this year.
I hope so.
he didn't look back. I mean, he was throwing the ball away. The one tip was an interception, so you can put that aside. But he was throwing the ball away. He wasn't trying to force balls last week, and I think if he takes that, I think he'll have a great game.
Yeah.
I'm not really worried about Carson's really the least of my worries. My biggest worry is the offensive line, just because they're so banged up and they're having trouble, getting reps in at practice, working on their technique and their steps, picking up the stunts. Those are the things I'm really worried about. I think if the offensive line can just improve a little bit in that area, I think everything else is going to come along.
Yeah, this is a pissed off Georgia team, man, and they see the film every week, right? The things I didn't hear this week about Georgia from Kirby was he didn't really go into detail a lot about what stood out to him on film. In weeks past, he's come to Carson's defense and said, hey, 68 out of 73 decisions were made. So he has these statistics in mind. So I think he looks back and he goes, I mean, we talked about it on the live that night. I talked about it. We talked about it on Overreaction Sunday. And we said, I mean, defense kind of held their own. A lot of people have said this. If you told me you're going to hold Ole Miss to under 200 yards of passing in Jackson Dart, and they got them in other places, some here and there, but the lack of productivity on the offense, I mean, it made them look like they were like the golden childs on offense, but it was the worst offensive productivity Ole Miss has had all year as well. Now, nothing's being talked about because it was an Ole Miss win. And so you're never going to hear how bad the offense was unless you're from Georgia fans, because believe me, honestly, I can tell you, if we go and we beat Tennessee this weekend, we're still going to have Georgia fans that are bitching and complaining about what's going on with Georgia. So we know that's going to happen. And we're some of those, right? But we're looking at it in an area of, I mean, I try to look at it during the game. I'm looking at it in the area as a fan, but then after the game, and what I'm trying to give viewers and listeners is like, this is what we think's going on. It was either one or two things, and I'm hoping it's the first. I'm hoping it was and even if it's the first, like it's still troubling, but I'm hoping that it was a pure, for our offensive line, it was a pure, like, man, we were caught off guard. Some of those 365 days of looking at how Georgia does things, and it goes, look, this is how they are. And you got to look at Lane and go, he's been doing this for how long? He's been looking at Georgia for how long? So that means he's also taking games from this year and going, how does this compare to last year? How does this compare to this game? How does this compare against a predominantly running team? How does this compare against an ACC team? He's sounds like to me he's really keeping tabs on what's going on with Georgia. And I think they saw some stuff last week that they're probably threw their hands up and they're like, I've never seen Georgia's offensive line, not even as healthy as it's been, but I've never seen Georgia's offensive line look like that. Do you agree, Richman?
No, I hadn't either.
It was bad. And I don't know if it was from effort, because you look at Tate Ratledge and healthy Tate's a first-round draft pick on the line. And you look at Michael Morris, he's one of the strongest offensive linemen that we have. And for the most part, when Morris has been healthy, when he took over for Tate, we didn't have a bunch of offensive line issues in the interior. When Jared and Micah was right there and Truss was floating from, Dylan Fairchild, we usually line Dylan up at left guard. I just think we got some stuff thrown at us that was really complex and crazy. But if Kiffin's been watching us for 365 days plus, I mean, geez, man, it's like, can you imagine like Groundhog Day every single day? I get up and I look at this play stuff and I talk to the players about, hey, we're going to run a period of practice on, hey, today we're doing Georgia's blitz scheme. Today we're looking at, zone read. Today they did us like that for 365 days. You can either call him crazy or you can call him smart. I think he was a guy that was just licking his chops and he needed his signature win. It had been years and years and years, and his name had popped up at Florida a couple times. It had been years and years, and he needed his signature win, or he might start thinking, am I going to get these wins at Ole Miss? And so he said it. He said, we went out, we bought more offensive linemen. Just plain and simple, he said it. We bought them. We bought more defensive linemen. We spent more money on the front seven of both sides than we did any other, place in the portal. And it showed.
my biggest gripe with the whole game was Kirby last year should have gone out and bought Nolan. He should have
Yeah.
said, "How much do you need?
Right.
Let me make a phone call."
Yeah.
There's no way he should have ever let that guy go to Ole Miss. But
Yeah, I
I
agree.
mean,
And if
that's
Kirby, if you can hear me right now, Kirby, if you can hear me right now, pony up the money for Juju. We are in an NIL era right now. It is like this. This is how it is. You're going to have to play the game against playing the game. You're just going to have to do it. If you want to beat the Yankees, sometimes you got to think like the Yankees. I mean, some teams are going to beat. I mean, some teams maybe, but you can't tell me right now, like Richman, Patrick Mahomes, man. What do you do with Patrick Mahomes when he says he wants more money?
Yeah,
you give him more money, bro. You ante up because Patrick Mahomes is going to win you Super Bowls.
right.
I'm not saying Juju's there yet, but I am saying we don't know what NIL is yet. Not in Georgia. We haven't figured it out really yet.
Well, and the other thing that he needs to complement that with is he needs to find that nose tackle.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be a Jordan Davis or a Carter, or we got to have that stud in the middle to really make his defense work. Because a lot of people are complaining this year. They just don't know what's wrong with the defense. And I'll tell you exactly what's wrong with the defense. If we don't have that hoss down there in the middle,
mm-hmm.
that defense does not work 100%.
Right.
We're not hitting 100% because that you don't have that one thing down there in the middle that controls it all. And what the way it controls it is pretty simple. You can rush the quarterback with 4 guys and they can't handle it.
Right.
And then you can drop everybody back and play pass defense, and it looks different.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree. And I think we were able to do that against Texas. Would you agree?
We did.
That's the first time I've seen us get to the quarterback with 4. We were nowhere near the quarterback. Now, it makes sense now because for 300 something, I keep saying this, but 365 days, you have Lane Kiffin looking at Jackson Dart going, "You have 3 seconds. That's all you got, man." There is not one throw in a year against any scheme that Georgia's bringing that's being imitated by a scout team at Ole Miss that the play lasts longer than 3 seconds.
That's right.
Just didn't. We didn't get there. We didn't get there, but it was not because we couldn't get there. It was because the scheme was around. We're not going to let them get there.
People complaining that we don't have enough sacks. And a lot of times the reason we don't have sacks is because the other team is scheming us and they know they've only got 3 seconds or less to get the ball out of there.
Yeah.
That's why we don't get a lot of sacks.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. And speaking of that, I mean, how do we think? I mean, this is one of our questions. Not like, how do you think Tennessee, like, how do you think our defense keeps Tennessee? How do you think we keep their offense at bay? Like,
well,
I think Tennessee, what do you think they'll try to do to us?
I think we're going to have to stop the run, so we're going to have to stack the box. We're probably going to have to play some man, and they're going to have to be careful and not let that Deontay get loose because he averages 30 yards a reception, and he's had 5 plays over 40. So we got to stop the run, but we can't let the big play get us. I mean, the defensive backs are going to have to be very disciplined, extremely disciplined.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think the key to this week to me will be if I see Smile Mondon and he looks and he's as healthy and he looks as good as Kirby kind of led on in his presser on. I saw a presser on Tuesday, or it was Tuesday, I think. If Smile is good, then we get a little more of him playing where Jalen was, and we get Jalen back to doing what he's really great at, and that's hovering, moving around, causing chaos. Jalen's having to play a primary, down line. He's been playing a primary position where he's locked on run or he's locked on a receiver and he's covering. I mean, that's why you didn't. People ask, they're like, why don't we see a lot of Jalen? Well, did you see how many linebackers we had to cover receivers last week? I mean, they were in 5, and you got to think Jackson Dart, whether he has a cast on his foot the size of whatever or not, you predominantly had 4 to 5 receivers plus a back plus Dart. So you got to think, man, you basically only saw, that's why you only saw CJ a lot of times coming, because it's like, do you see how many people are out there now? Tennessee used to do a lot of, we talk about spreading to the hashes, playing. They don't do as, I said this last week about Walter Nolan. I'm not going to say this again. I didn't see them do as much of it this year. They are a team that is a little bit more balanced this year. I think that's helped Nico, but they have gone through some struggles on offense. And I've heard from a couple of podcasts that predominantly have Tennessee podcast guys that are talking about, how, they feel like they're just one step away from either having a big game, but really that one step feels so far away for them. Sounds kind of like Georgia, right? Like we're one step away from really the offense breaking out, but as we look at it on tape from week to week, it's like, man, that looks like a big step for us. It looks like it looks like we can do some things. We're that 250, 300-yard offense when we break out. But you got to think, when some of these offenses in the SEC are breaking out, they're breaking out for 500 and 600 like Ole Miss is. Right. So for us, when we don't break out, we have games like Tennessee's had some of the games we've had, and it's had a fan base questioning Heupel and questioning Nico, and Dylan Sampson has been a top performer for them this year. I mean, he's the first running back that I think I will talk about all year long as a primary person on offense that we will have to really keep an eye on. We look at offense, obviously we talk about Nico, 1,879 yards passing. If we're comparing to last week, Jackson Dart's got 3,409 yards passing. So this is definitely a little bit more of a balanced approach from Tennessee this year. Don't want to forget Gaston Moore. He's the backup that we may or may not see on Saturday. 201 yards, not much to show for, but Dylan Sampson's stats, it shows where the workhorse is in them. It shows who's going to be, the bell cow when it comes to
1,100 yards already.
So he's at 201 carries for 1129, 20 touchdowns. So he's definitely the stud. He's that I'm hearing. He's actually a Heisman. He's on Heisman watch. So Tennessee has a Heisman contributor. Receivers, I mean, you talked about Deontay Thornton, 505 yards receiving. I mean, every Ole Miss receiver last week, they had 4 receivers that were averaging over 700 yards. So Brew McCoy obviously has been injury prone in the past. This will be a game for him that he remembers a lot, because in years past he's either been coming back from an injury or he's missed this game, and he's been Brew's had some brutal injuries at Tennessee. 357 yards, and Squirrel White, I'm not even going to say the words about quiet this year, but Squirrel White's at 304 yards, but definitely another receiver that is very elusive and scary. And I've heard good things about the receiver.
Squirrel's 5'10", 167 pounds, but McCoy is 6'3", 230. So he's been like a running back, taller than a running back, but heavy. And Deontay is 6'5", 214 pounds. So those guys are big.
Yeah. So it's a really good combination on your X and your Y.
I think one of the things is Nico's just had a lot of he's had a lot of misses. He struggled in the passing, and that's because if he gets hot, those guys could be dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, I say we want to shut down the run and make him throw the ball, but that's predicated on him not being very accurate.
Right.
He gets accurate. And he's throwing the ball well. It's going to be a long day.
Yeah. But I mean, oh man, you know what? We'll throw all our cards in this week. It is what it is. I haven't seen that this year. Right. I haven't seen Nico really take over a game this year. So I think you're right. I think it needs to be a combination of it's the same combination Georgia's looking for, right? A complete game. I think Tennessee and Georgia are trying to find their peak, and trying to figure out, what's going to get them. I mean, let's just be honest, man. If the offense doesn't show up, or the defense doesn't show up, or one area of the game doesn't show up, and even though Georgia wins, I mean, it's great. We live to play another day, and we may get past UMass, and we may get past Georgia Tech, but we're not going to last that long in the playoffs with, I would call them black eyes on our scheme. It's like, at some point in time, we have to see a complete game from Georgia. The one of the ones I will say that was closest was Texas. And I think the only eyesore on it was the interceptions from Carson. But I mean, we said it the other week. It's like, can Carson just throw a pick? I mean, he didn't get to see the ball much after he threw the pick, so that might have been it. But can he just? I mean, I could care less if he opens up the game and throws it dead out of Tennessee's numbers, and they get it. We 3 and out them, and here we are. Carson's throwing his pick.
One
here
thing,
we go.
I mean, when Carson throws a pick, though, he usually comes back and plays. He doesn't completely fall apart. I know you say, well, he's thrown 3 in 2 or 3 games, right? But
right, he's seen enough of them, right?
Yeah, hopefully we get the complete game. That's just all I want to say about that.
Well, that's the thing. It's like we waited, and now it's like you see the scenario playing out, and you go, "This is a great opportunity for Georgia to put their cards." I think if you're Kirby Smart, that's what you're telling them all week. It's like, look, we're sitting here, we're 7-2. We've lost to 2 teams that are right now sitting in the college football playoff hunt, right? One team that's peaking really well, which is Alabama, who lost to Tennessee. And so if you look at the SEC, man, it's very, you can't really look at any team and go, okay, well, you can predict this is how they've looked, this is how they're going to look. I mean, in all honesty, like we said that against Georgia, and they could have not looked any different from Texas to Ole Miss in big game situations. No, it couldn't have been anywhere different. We thought in the first 3 minutes, we were like, oh, this is a team that's going to come out on the road when it's on the line, big time teams, big time atmospheres, and just be that giant slayer, And we were a giant slayer for like 3 minutes. So we'll see. I mean, like I said, Georgia hasn't played at home. Georgia hasn't had the atmosphere where, I mean, they have everything. They have everything. What's the word?
The ball's in their court.
Geographically, everything's in our court. Everything's set up well for us, besides weather. And we don't know what that's going to be like. But we dealt with weather last week, and it wasn't good to us either.
I think the weather's looking good for Saturday. I think, I mean, offensive line play is going to be key because if they can get a little bit of running game, that's going to take some of the psychological pressure off your receivers. Right. It's going to take some psychological pressure off of Beck. Right. And hopefully with that, you're going to see some success out there.
Right.
That'll build on itself. And, if it could build on itself all 4 quarters, we could see a complete game.
I think we hope so. I think that's the hope. And we talked about offense, defense. Obviously, James Pierce, big time, first round potential at defensive end. He leads the team with 5.5 sacks, 27 solo tackles. Will Brooks, 3 interceptions, 41 tackles. We talk about how seeing things in that third layer of tackles being made is not sometimes a good thing. Aaron Carter, 50 tackles at linebacker. So we look at the defensive line, and they don't, they look like they are what we call plugs, right? They try to make plugs. They try to let the linebackers make plays. But I don't know about you, but different than Ole Miss, I mean, that kind of is a scheme that favors Georgia because we have seen a Trevor Etienne and an Nate Frazier be able to make those second levels miss.
Yep.
And if that's the case, I mean, in games past, they're making defensive linemen and linebackers miss. If we can get to that second level, maybe we make that miss happen.
The thing is, we're also, if you're getting hats on hats, and because obviously last week we saw a lot of plays where they didn't get a hat on anybody at the first level. It was just confusion. But if we can get the hats on people at the first level, our running backs then are in the second level. That's 3 to 4 yards.
Yeah. And I don't think Kirby's going to let this game. I think Kirby will be very in tune to understanding the assignment, and that's he's not going to be able to allow things to start to fester. If he sees the offensive line is like, all right, look, we are not understanding what's going on right now. We can't let this play out. I got a feeling he'll be willing to burn timeouts in the beginning and just be like, look, this is what's happening, right? Look, you need to understand this is what's happening.
Look,
you got to play this. What's that?
Do you think that last week they kind of held Beck back, I think, because of the previous interceptions.
You don't have anything to lose this week.
And it was they held him back. I don't like that. Do you think that they're going to hold him back, or do you think they're just going to let him go play?
I think I'm going to talk about it a lot more in my pick, but I think the game plan this week is totally what we talked about last week. I think Bobo knows he's vanilla. I think he knows. I think our offense has been playing to not lose the past few weeks, and I think he understands. If we have a really good recipe for success. We have an atmosphere now. We have hopefully we have a defense that will be fired up. We can put the ball in their hands, and the defense is controlling the night, right? And when the defense controls the night, the offense is allowed to play like they did at Texas. We dropped 30 points on Texas, right? And that's easy to say, but we're always talking about Texas right now statistically is the best defense in the SEC. Tennessee is right there with them. Ole Miss right there with them. But the recipe for success is the defense is winning. The defense is winning, then the offense plays better.
So I saw a stat a little while ago, and it was talking about the teams that have played the most ranked opponents. We have played 4. We lost 2 and we won 2. Texas has played 1 and they lost.
Mm-hmm. You want to add Tennessee to that? Who's played 1?
Was it 1?
I'm pretty sure. Let's look at it real quick.
No,
I just want to make.
They played.
I know it was Alabama
and lost.
Alabama and lost.
No, they beat Alabama.
They beat Alabama. Sorry. Okay. The loss is to Arkansas.
And Arkansas was not ranked.
Arkansas was not ranked at the time. Let's just make sure. Before we head into talk a little bit about college football playoffs.
So what we're toying with here is strength of schedule.
Yeah, which leads us into the college football playoff stuff. So Oklahoma was ranked 15th at the time.
Okay.
But we all know that was so Oklahoma also came into that game. They had played Temple, Houston, Tulane.
Oh, wow.
I mean, they're ranked, but they played nobody. And so, so they play a ranked Oklahoma team. They barely beat them at home. 25-15 Nico had against Oklahoma. Oklahoma, pretty good defense. Beginning of the year, they were pretty good. Nico had 194 yards passing. Sampson, 92 yards rushing. Brew McCoy had 92 of those, 194 yards. The schedule that Tennessee's played is at Chattanooga. NC State was at NC State, but we've all seen that NC State has proven that 24th ranking is not very true, which was the ranking at the time. Kent State, they beat 71-0. Talk about a pat statter. But here's the thing, and I know he might not have been in the game much, but Nico only threw for 173 yards. Nico's best game has been against Kentucky, which is pretty scary because Kentucky has a pretty good defense. However, at that point in time, their best cornerback, and Kentucky had a lot of injuries on the defense. Maxwell was out for Kentucky, one of their best corners, and they only won 28-18. And if you would remember that game, a lot of people thought that Kentucky played a really good game against Tennessee. But Sampson has been the one that's picked up. He's picked up the flack a lot of times. His worst rushing game is 92 yards, and that was against Oklahoma. So, we'll definitely see. It'll be very interesting. But going into strength of schedule, obviously the college football playoffs came out Tuesday. I know what you're going to say. What I'm going to say. I didn't really even watch them. Didn't care. But what I did go back and do and look at, and as I listened and strolled through some social media and TikTok and things, I couldn't believe that basically the committee said strength of schedule didn't matter.
I know that was a slap in the face. I don't really care either because Saturday's gonna tell the story. We're either in or out.
Three wins. We got 3 wins. We can't worry about.
Yeah, we got 3 to win, but Saturday's a do or die.
Yeah. I don't understand. Like for the life of me, like how in the world can you say that? Because in my opinion, I mean, you look at a Georgia team who has beat who has big wins against, at this time, a Clemson team that they only allowed 3 points against. It was a top 10 team at a neutral site. They beat Texas on the road by double digits on the road when they were ranked as the number 1 team in the nation. They have had really great road win, in my opinion, against Kentucky, because Kentucky, in my opinion, could do a lot of. I think Kentucky could beat a couple of these teams that are in there. I think I'd have Kentucky against BYU, maybe Indiana. I don't know. They haven't seen a defense like that.
The Tennessee Kentucky game, that's when Vandergriff got hurt and went out.
Yes.
They were giving him everything they could handle until he got hurt and went out of the game.
Yeah.
So
Oregon, I agree with. Ohio State. I mean, bro, who have they played? Tell me. I mean, I get it. Wins and loss, but who have you played? You can't just give them the 3rd spot because they have less losses. I mean, if you input Purdue and
maybe what they're saying is they're just going to go by win losses because that hurts the SEC, and maybe they're going to try to put 4 SEC teams in and 5 what?
How? I like we gave ourselves some time tonight, but I love how we have some time on this, because I just want to talk about, like, I don't understand how in the world, when you look at, like, let's look at schedule, and bear with me here because I'm gonna pull these. So let's look at Indiana's schedule. Let's just look there first. So when you look at Indiana this year, okay, really hot team. They've said it themselves, like the eye factor, the eye test is there, right? That's one thing that they've said about Indiana. The eye test is there. They like what they see out of Indiana, so forth, so on. So let's look at Indiana's strength of schedule first off. Do you have that? Do you have that schedule? That strength of schedule? I think I had it on in the notes. Indiana's strength of schedule is 103. 103.
Yes.
Is the strength of schedule. So here's who they played: Florida International, Western Illinois, UCLA, Charlotte, Maryland, Northwestern, Nebraska, Washington, Michigan State, Michigan. Their first test is Ohio State, November 23rd. And after that, they don't have another one. So we played Texas. So it would be like us playing Texas and then all these fools. And then going, we deserve to be in the playoff. And if they lose, are they just a one-loss team against, do they go, well, they lost number 2, Ohio State. They shouldn't fall much. Like Purdue, like, dude, Georgia takes this schedule right here. And they're like, I don't even have, they're in. They're in the playoff. Their one loss might be Ohio State because it's at the shoe. I don't know. I'll just, for right now, I'll call it that. I mean, let's look at the Big 12. I mean, let's look at BYU. I mean, the playoff committee should be really ashamed of themselves, dude, for this crap. And I'm not arguing it because I don't care about, I understand we have 2 losses and I understand this is how it goes. But with 2 losses to 2 teams that, in my opinion, are playoff worthy teams right now, Alabama's one of the hottest teams in college football right now. They got their crap together. They got a couple of hard games left. I think you don't think Auburn is a hard game, but I think it is. It's rivalry. It's Iron Bowl. It's Hugh Freeze has nothing to lose. Oklahoma has nothing to lose. Brent Venables. They're all playing for kind of their jobs, man. So, and you know we've shown that Alabama can overlook people this year. But I mean, Big 12, man. BYU, give me BYU's schedule. Let me see this thing, man. Lord help us, man. Southern Illinois, SMU, Wyoming, Kansas State. This is the Kansas State that was ranked 13th, and now they're not ranked anymore, by the way.
Right.
Baylor, Arizona. Arizona's not good this year. We thought they were going to be. Oklahoma State, UCF, Utah. They should have lost at Utah. Like, they should have dropped. They won 22-21. By the way, guys, Utah is a 5-loss team. It's a 5-loss team. So they look at Ole Miss and they see the loss to Ole Miss. Georgia drops 10 spots.
Yeah,
BYU.
how does that happen? I mean, that's just like last year when we dropped out of the we had one loss. It was SEC, and we dropped all the way out.
I think they tried to clear the board. I think they tried to clear the board so that if they could get, I think they looked at us and goes, if we beat Tennessee and we went out, then we got to creep in. So we got to get one of these teams low enough to get an SEC team out of here, right?
That's what.
Yeah, it looks like
I think they're going to try to put 5 Big Ten teams in. I mean, I don't know, but what do you think?
I don't. What I think is, I think this playoff committee is terrible. I think they're god awful. I think Oregon has the 45th best schedule in the country, and I think they deserve to be the number 1 team right now. I think Ohio State, I'm fine with Ohio State being there.
Yeah.
Right now, 19th toughest schedule in the country. Miami, the reason why they're going to be there probably is because they may win their terrible conference.
You don't think
they may win their terrible conference? Texas, I'm fine with them being there. But by the way, let me just give you a hint. Georgia beat that Texas team on the road. Penn State, I'm not fine with Penn State, bro. Okay, hold on. Here's another one. Penn State, like, are you kidding me? What is your Big Ten, like, bull crap? What is your need to, like, just gloat over a Big Ten team? All right, schedule. Here we go. Here you go, Penn State. Can't win the big one. Can't win the big one. What is their elite win? West Virginia, Bowling Green, Kent State, Illinois, that at that time was ranked 19th, and now Illinois is unranked. UCLA, USC. Is USC your big win in overtime against a USC team that right now is, drumroll, 4-5? So USC is your big win. Don't go away now. Don't mess that with me now. Wisconsin, you lost to Ohio State 20-13. Washington, you have Purdue, Minnesota, Maryland. What in the world? Like, what? Like, how can strength of schedule not matter? I mean, these teams are, let's see. Let me just pull them. West Virginia right now is 5-4. Bowling Green is 5-4. We got 8 losses combined. Kent State, I think Kent State's 0-8. Add 9 more. There's 17 losses. Illinois has 3 more. There's 21 losses. Illinois is the best team they played so far, by the way, besides Ohio State. Oh, let's add UCLA with their 5 losses. There's 27. So are we seeing something right here? In the first 5 teams you played, there's a combined 30 losses in the first 5 teams you played. Washington ain't Washington. And then, oh, by the way, so you're telling me if they run they're going to make the playoff. They got Purdue coming up. Purdue's 1-8, by the way.
Right.
So the last 3 games they have, the last 3 teams they play have 8 losses. Minnesota has 4 losses. There's 12. And Maryland, do we even want to look? I mean, Maryland, 5. So the last 3 teams they play have 13 losses. Let's do it. We got time. Let's pull Georgia's schedule real quick. This is just going to show you with Penn State alone how freaking crapped out this committee is right now. And it's not about the playoffs in Georgia right now. We know what we got to do. Here's my thing, man. Georgia played Clemson, neutral site. Clemson has 2 losses. Okay. Tennessee Tech. All right, we'll pull it. Let's just see what they have. I'm curious. Are they 0-8? Hey man, they're 5-5. Even Georgia's like, gimme. They ain't Kent State 1-8.
Right.
Matter of fact, there's 2 1-8 teams on Penn State's schedule. That's Purdue and them. Kentucky is 3-6. They're SEC team though, so they're playing big time competition. Alabama, we know, has 2 losses. Auburn, we know, has 6 losses, but all those losses besides 1 are to an SEC team. And then you got your Texas, your Ole Miss. We don't even have to look this up. Your Texas, your Ole Miss, your Tennessee. I mean, I don't get it, man. How does this play? So, in my opinion, there is no way if Georgia wins out, if Ole Miss wins out, if Alabama wins out, and Tennessee has 2 losses, and Texas, for some reason, if Texas beat either way, if Texas beats Texas A&M and then gets into the SEC championship and then loses the SEC championship, can you see what you have there? You have a Georgia team who has 2 losses, who has lost to an Ole Miss team and an Alabama team. You have an Alabama team with 2 losses who has lost to a Tennessee team. You have a Texas team who's got 2 losses, who's lost to, I mean, maybe just Texas A&M. I mean, if they creep in there and they beat, I mean, how does that happen? You know, you got a Texas team who's lost to Georgia, then you've got an Ole Miss team who's lost to Kentucky. If I'm the committee, do you weigh the losses of Ole Miss over the wins of Ole Miss? That's the thing. Yeah, they beat Georgia, but dude, you lost to, you know, Kentucky and who's their other?
Was it LSU?
Yes, LSU, who is not a playoff team. So I don't know. It's just wild, man. I mean, you look at right now, Penn State has it says the 28th toughest schedule. I don't know what they're weighing that off of, man. Indiana's at 103, BYU's at 61. Notre Dame shouldn't even be in the damn area code right now of a 12-team playoff. Like 75th ranked schedule in the country. The Texas A&M is all you played, man. It's nuts. We got lots to talk about to finish the night out. We want to talk about what keys to victory on offense, defense is. We're going to pick the games. Talk about our pick for the Georgia-Tennessee game, like what's going to be the deciding factor. So let's hop right in real quick. Let's do it right now. So Rich Man, you want offense or defense? I'll take the other. Keys to victory by offense or defense? Who you want?
I'll take the offense.
All right, let's go. What for Georgia to win this game? What does the offense got to do for 4 quarters?
Our offensive line's got to give us a little bit of push, and we got to get our running game. It doesn't run a game that we don't need 100 yards. We just need to get some yardage, and we need to catch the ball.
Yeah,
but I really think it all feeds off the line. If the line gives them a little bit of push, I think everybody else is going to do their part. And I'm not worried about Beck. Even if he throws an interception, I'm not worried about Beck. I think Beck's probably, as much criticism as he's taken, he probably is the one I'm least worried about.
Yeah. Defense, I think whether it's Nico or the quarterback, I think having Smile healthy is really key. It gives Jalen Walker the opportunity to do what he did at Texas, and that was roam freely. I think it gives us. I think Jalen gets there because it's how he gets there, man. I like CJ. Don't get me wrong. I love CJ. CJ is going to be a staple in that defense for the rest of this year and next year. But Jalen is a talent that if you give him the opportunity to do what Jalen does, he is a havoc breaker. I think if Jalen Walker has a game like he has against Texas, this is a W, because this means Nico is throwing off of just not with a lot of time. He's having to make quick decisions. We can cause some turnovers, and that's what we need, because we don't need to give him all day long so that these receivers can just have time to go up against these, because we have height advantage and we have a lot of I call it weight, but we have a lot of I think we have a strength advantage in that area when you look at 6'4" and 6'5" with Brew McCoy and Deontay. So I don't like those matchups, but I like those matchups in terms of if we can get heat on them, because those receivers are not as fast and elusive, kind of like these Ole Miss receivers, right? So I like that matchup. As far as a run game, I think keys to victory is I think Dylan Sampson. I think he gets his yards off of Tennessee being successful in the pass game. I think if we get to looking a little bit too much at Nico, we get to look a little bit too much at what's going on in the receiver area, and then our line play gets a little bit sloppy. There's some holes open, and if you notice, Dylan Sampson, out of those 100 yards he usually grabs, he gets a 40, 50-yard run every once in a while, at least once a game. And so he's not one of those ones that's going to just churn it down the field on you. So I think if we can make sure and stay consistent, and if we can do what Ole Miss did to us, I mean, we were in obvious passing situations a lot throughout the rest of the game, right? That's where we were most successful against Tennessee. I do, however, think what you said earlier. I don't know if we are at the point where we can do that yet. I don't know if I want to see this defense back in that cover zero, really tight man coverage. It worries me because of the fact that the deep ball it might not have to be a speed related thing anymore. You look at some of those back shoulder throws, you look at some adjustments that can be made off the deep ball. It doesn't always have to be a deep ball. We can adjust. We got 6'5" on Humphreys, or Humphreys is one of our taller. But you look at Everett and you have some height over there. You don't have to just beat him. You can always look at back shoulder throws. You can always look at one-on-one, and it's like throw it where he ain't.
Right.
That concerns me. But I think keys to defensive victory is the front four have to get some push, have to cause some havoc, and Jalen has to have a game. His name has to be mentioned as a key contributor on that side of the ball for us to win the ball game. I think Jalen Walker is the key. Mike Hill as well. Hadn't heard his name a lot. But if you hear the defensive line, you're going to know that Mike Hill had a part in that. But I do think Jalen Walker, if you hear his name called a lot, like that Texas game, that's why we win on defense. Let's pick some games real quick. We'll pick that game last and give our final comments and get in here right up under hour. Besides the Georgia Tennessee game, only other real crazy important game going on in the SEC is Texas going to Arkansas. Now, this could be a little bit of a watch out game, right? You got an offense that is a pretty good offense. You have Arkansas, who has been extremely inconsistent in a lot of areas of the game this year. However, I think we're getting towards the end of the year. I think Sam Pittman is doing his best to make sure that his resume has spoken for itself to get one more stab at this team for a year or two more. He hasn't had that hat tip yet like Billy Napier has had. I don't know how true that is, but I've heard. I mean, and it's been news last week was that Billy Napier has been reinstated for next year. I don't know if that's a long-term contract, but at least for next year, I don't know how true it is to. For now, I don't know what for now is. I don't know if that might still be there in the year, but we hadn't heard that from Sam Pittman. So is this a trap game, Rich man? Who you got? Texas, Arkansas, noon at Arkansas. Is Texas looking ahead?
I got Texas.
Yeah. Why?
They need to look ahead because I think they're going to drop one day in him.
Yeah. Texas. I mean, this will be the second game that they actually get tested. I mean, we all know Texas hasn't been tested at all, but by Georgia, and that there's a loss in their win column on that one. So we will see LSU going into the Swamp, 3:30 ABC. For LSU, I don't think they can suffer another loss. Brian Kelly took a lot of heat from last week with the ugly score. A lot of game day there, picked to win that game. LSU 6-3 right now. Maybe still a lot of things could go wrong, but who you got in this game? You got LSU at 4 right now. Giving them 4 points.
I'm taking LSU. As much as I'd like to see an upset, I'm taking LSU.
I haven't seen if Lagway plays in this game, but if Lagway plays in this game,
Lagway plays, it's going to be an interesting game.
It'd be interesting, yeah. But I think you see the same kid, the third string kid, and LSU comes in here and gets a little redemption. I got LSU as well in this game against Florida. 7:30 p.m. Number 1 Oregon going to Wisconsin. Wisconsin's put a little bit together. They're 5-4. Oregon comes in 10-0, 7-0 in the Big Ten. Not as big of a point spread going into Camp Randall. So 14 to Oregon. This is 7:30 night game in Wisconsin. I heard we got some cold up there. Is Oregon? I mean, I know Oregon's used to the cold a little bit, but what do you think about how this one pans out, Rich man? Who you got? Oregon, Wisconsin.
I think Oregon. I think they cover too.
I think Oregon is a really good team right now. I think they have to stay consistent. I know when you look at Oregon's, I just tapped their schedule right now. When you look at Wisconsin and Washington, I mean, you really look at Oregon and go, you feel good about a rematch possibly with Ohio State, which once again, when you look at strength of schedule, like if Ohio State loses twice to Oregon, who else have you played? Yeah, who else have you played? We don't know. I don't know.
If you lose twice to Oregon, and then Do you go to the playoffs?
I mean, 2-loss team
I
that
mean,
their strength of
do you
schedule
go to the
is.
playoffs where you may end up playing them again and take a third loss? Does
I
that
mean,
look
that would
that
be
would just
detrimental to the playoff committee.
that would
It
just look
really would.
yeah.
Very detrimental. Utah coming off of totally robbed versus BYU. Totally robbed. Going into Colorado. Colorado seems to be a team that everything is set up for them. Apparently, if Colorado runs the board, Colorado will be. They have a really good shot of making the playoff. But you know, if BYU has something to say about it, but they don't play BYU. They got Utah, Kansas, Oklahoma State. So this could possibly be between Utah and Oklahoma State. Bedlam's always hard to play at, but that game's at home. Colorado has a chance to be in the playoff if they win out. But who do you got in this game?
Dude, I'm Colorado. Shadur's going to take care of business.
Is Colorado clicking at the right time? Like,
I think
they
so.
just clicking at the right time?
I think
Not
they
many
are.
games this week worth calling really either. I just noticed that. 10:15 ESPN, BYU. This game on paper should have been Kansas being. I thought Kansas was going to be a lot better this year, coming off of the year they had last year. The playmakers. This one's in BYU. It's a late kick. Here's the thing that is weird. You got a 3-6 Kansas team, and BYU's only getting 2.5 points at home.
What?
They're only getting 2.5. I don't know, man. Does Vegas know
What's
something we don't know?
Kansas's record?
3-6. I mean, if you're Vegas better, man, that's a great game to. I mean,
Yeah,
taking BYU and the points all day long.
I don't understand their math a lot. I mean,
Yeah,
like with Georgia,
yeah.
I think some of the lines that they're putting on Georgia that they must be going the other way and making a lot of money off of it.
I don't know, or they know something. I mean,
because Georgia don't
that
cover.
availability report. I don't know what the stipulations are of that availability report. I know there's 2 that comes out, and maybe since if Nico for some reason's in protocol, I don't know if there's stipulations that he doesn't have to be listed. He's not technically injured. He's in more of a protocol phase, so they're just keeping watch on him. But as far as an injury, he doesn't have it, right? He doesn't have an injury, but he's in a protocol to make sure that he doesn't incur an injury. Like he's in a state where he doesn't get injured if he plays. I don't know. I personally think there's probably some wording behind that doesn't allow him to be on that list. That's why he's on that list. So who knows, man? Missouri, 23 Missouri. South Carolina breaks into the ranks again. This is 4:15 SEC Network at South Carolina. South Carolina, this is their first week against a ranked team where they're a double-digit favorite. This is the reverse on me. I think they're saying that Brady Cook doesn't play in this. William Bryce, though, 4:15. A little cold front coming through. Obviously, it gets dark a little earlier, so Sandman will be hopping come between third and fourth quarter. 13.5 point favorites is U.S. South Carolina. Who you got? Missouri, South Carolina.
Yeah, South Carolina. I don't know if they'll cover, but I'll take
South Carolina big, man. Cook doesn't play, man. This offense has been, I mean, needless to say, I don't think it's Missouri is one of the more peculiar offenses, kind of like Georgia's this year. It's like Luther Burden, you got Weiss. We talked about how good this offense could be this year with Brady Cook, and it just didn't pan out. 2 more, then we'll pick Georgia. So a game that nobody's talking about a lot that could speak into a lot of what the ACC championship game looks like. Number 20 Clemson, noon kickoff going into Pittsburgh, going into Pitt. Pitt's 7-2 right now, taking a couple losses, but Clemson on the road against both teams 7-2, 6-1, 3-2 in the ACC is the difference. Clemson's getting 10 points on the road. Who do you got in this one?
I'll take Clemson.
I mean, I'll take Clemson because we need Clemson to keep winning. We need Clemson to keep winning big. We need Clemson to win the ACC championship. To be honest with you,
too many people go into Pitt and get pounded. So it seems like
to
me that's a hard place to win sometimes.
The coal miners.
Must be yeah. trace amounts of coal in the air up there.
Right.
Makes it hard to breathe.
Oh man, trace amounts of cold. All right, and then the big one: Tennessee, Georgia. Number 7, Tennessee versus 12, Georgia. Tennessee coming in 8-1, 5-1 in the SEC. Their lone loss on the road to Arkansas. Georgia 7-2, 5-2 in the SEC. Losses on the road to Alabama and to Ole Miss. As of today, and these are live, we're looking at 58 degrees on a cool 7:30 game time in Athens at Sanford Stadium, and Georgia at 7:30 at night and at 10:26 in the evening on Wednesday is a 10-point favorite right now, not 10.5. They're giving Georgia 10 at home. I think I know who you're going to pick. I'll let you pick it though. But and we talked about what the keys to talked about what you thought the keys on offense was. But to make it interesting, give me a score and tell me who you think the game changer. Like, who do we got to be talking about at the end of the game for this to be a victory for Georgia? What's the name that sticks out to you? So give me a prediction score and who's the name that sticks out to you.
24-21 Dogs.
Ooh, close one, huh?
Beck
field goal.
Beck throws no interceptions.
Beck throws no interceptions. You think it's a field is it a last minute field goal or is it just a defensive stand and we were out there 24?
Yeah, I think it's defense. They got a good defense. I think it's going to be a defensive game. I think we're going to get the points we need. I don't expect a shootout because I just don't trust that our offensive line's going to, let us dominate the run and open up the pass like we'd like to see and put 28 to 30 points up. I hope I'm freaking wrong too, but I'm worried about the line, worried about the injuries.
I like Georgia in this one. I think that the crowd becomes a factor. I think the defense plays very inspired. I think the offense does just like Texas. It does enough. I don't think the offense is going to score 30. But I have seen in past years the offense that has hit strides of struggle go into this game, especially when we play Tennessee at home, and not look like the offense of old. Now, we all know and think between drop balls and the offensive line and some banged up running backs that there's a combination there of what's got to go really, really right for that offense to look outstanding. I think the offense will look better this week, but I think you're going to see the crowd and the defense be the variable factor. You're going to have to score with Georgia, but not in the sense of Georgia's going to score a lot of points. Does that make sense? You're going to have to score with Georgia. But I think Georgia is I think they allow a touchdown, but I think that's all they get, man. I think there's a couple of field goals mixed in. I think you can see
how many interceptions has Nico thrown?
Nico has. That's a good question. Let's get Tennessee real quick.
Because we might take one. The defense is due one.
Yeah, defense is due one. Let's get it to teams.
Maybe we get a defensive score. We beat them 27-21.
Yeah, we're definitely due one. So Nico 11 TDs, 4 interceptions.
Wow.
11 TDs. Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, because all of his throwing problems are he overthrows his deep balls. I don't know I didn't get enough film to see what his intermediate passing game looks like, but I've seen him overthrow a bunch of deep balls.
This is so impressive, dude. I mean, I'm screaming Nico's numbers, and I just got to go back. Jackson Dart, 3,400 yards passing, 22 TDs, 4 interceptions. So twice the amount of TDs, same amount of interceptions, and same amount of interceptions, and he doubled the output in passing yards. Should Jackson Dart be a Heisman candidate right now?
Yeah, really.
I mean, I I'd put him up there. I mean, what's Cam Ward? So 3,400 yards, right? What is Cam Ward like? Like, what if
Yeah,
they?
I don't think he's.
Anyways, I don't want to get too far off topic, but Jackson Dart has doubled. I think you might see defense get one. I got 27 for the Dogs. I got 13 for Tennessee. I think the defense really shows up well this game. Very big atmosphere. You got to if you're Schumann, you have to pick the best of both evils, and you have to call timeouts, and you have to make sure this game is we are locked in on defense to make sure we can control the narrative, because the offense is not going to be able to control the narrative. The offense needs to get some wind up under its sail, and we've shown what that can do. So
Right.
I think if you're Schumann, you got to make sure that we are in the right mindset. I think Jalen Walker's huge. He's my name, man. He is my name. If Jalen Walker's name is
If
called,
Jalen Walker and Mike Hill show up, we could definitely pick one off. And if we,
yeah,
if it's the right spot, we take it to the house.
Jalen Walker.
I would love to see a defensive score.
Yeah. Story of the night, I think, will be I think Jalen Walker will be the thing. Story of the night will be the run game. I think the story of the night will be the run game. I think we can get ourselves into some creative run scheme against them. I
Dude,
think we I think
it'd be awesome if Frazier could put up 100 yards, because I don't know if Cash or ETN are going to be there,
well
because
what
they
is
both showed up.
and we got to get out of here, but what is the number one way you can get the run game off of the offensive line's back? You got to get receivers blocking, you got to get tight ends blocking, you got to get other running backs blocking. I think we see a little more east to west play. We see Arian catching the ball. We see Dylan Bell in the game. I think our run game is not centered around zone read, and we're not going to be able to. I think they expect us to run through the tackles, but I think our run game needs to be centered on speed. I think we need to challenge the edge of this defense. I think Tennessee has a good defense. I think they have. We haven't really challenged the team speed of Tennessee. I haven't seen that a lot on display, but I've heard a lot of great things about the front. But as you know it, Georgia's always consistently had a good front. But one thing that we've always had trouble with in Schumann's defense and Kirby's defense is if you can get the edge on us, man, you can start to get us a little bit out of whack. I think that's what needs to be done to loosen up. But I think the offensive run game is something that will be talked about, because I think we'll be creative in how we get the ball in the hands of these. If we can get the pass to open up the run, that's when. The whole Texas scenario needs to happen at home. And if you can carbon footprint that with a really great atmosphere at home, it's a win. I think Georgia gets the win. I'm banking on Georgia getting the win. I'll eat my crow if they don't. It's a big game. Let me tell you what I'm betting on scenario wise. This team doesn't know how to deal with being senior day being a useless game. Doesn't make sense to this team. I can tell you it's being talked about. I can tell you they're thinking about it. They're going, how many of these seniors have stepped out there and grabbed their award and stood with their parents, and the game meant nothing? And don't get me wrong, it's tech. It's tech. It'll mean something, but it means nothing in the implications of a postseason, right?
Right.
In the 12-team playoff, man, bowl games are not. Let's just talk. Bowl games are. They're just. I don't know, man. They're just trips. They're just trips, man. God knows for Georgia, God knows what you would see as far as we've never. The reason why Georgia hasn't dealt with this is because Georgia hadn't had to deal with this. But I don't want Georgia this year to have to deal with this. Hey, should we sit out, right? And I just don't want to deal with that this year, So, got to win this weekend, Saturday, big game, big atmosphere. Even if you're looking at your TVs this weekend, yell at your damn TV screen, okay? Dog fans, if you're going to the game, here's the thing. I know you paid big money for your tickets. You paid big money for your parking pass. Don't drink too much to where you don't know if we're on offense or defense. And you know what? If we're on offense, shut up. If we're on defense, you need to make so much damn noise. If you come back home with a voice and we lost, you should feel ashamed of yourself. Give me and Richman that ticket. We'll make it worth its while. But anyways, Richman, always fun, man. Always fun. We're obviously going to be texting. If I had the the nerve to go live during the game without them seeing the real sweat that comes off of us during these games. I mean, I would, but it's gonna be a fun weekend, night game. Hopefully, good weather, man, and yeah, our backs are against the wall, man. It's the old BCS, right? Old BCS. You open the year and you're like, you can't lose, man. And then the next game, you can't lose. And then the third game. This is an interesting year because if you can give.
I tell you what, if we run the table and they some way figure out a way to keep us out again, we're going to be crying for a computer to pick this stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
Because
I don't think they will.
Computer takes strength of schedule and all the different variables into account.
Yeah.
I just don't understand. I don't know. I'm with you. The idea that they would come out and say, well, it's subjective. I'm like, subjective's not a good term. Can we be objective?
Right. And maybe they said that early on in the big process.
Because
do you think
there's some bias? I mean, when I lived in California, I would. This was before we had all the social media computers and stuff. See, ESPN would post that they would post the scores of every podunk school in America, all of the northern schools, and some of the big name in the SEC. They would never, ever give you a UGA score. I actually wrote them a letter. I was sick of it. And I would have to call home to find out who's winning. It was ridiculous.
Wow.
And it's still, what happened last year and what we're looking at with this. I don't understand what it is that they hate about UGA, but there's definitely some bias there.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, man, it's like if you're a dog fan, you got to enjoy these weeks, man. Like these are now our playoff games. So you need to look at this like it's a playoff game. And, it's Tennessee too. I mean, for us, it's a rival. I mean, everything that touches the state's a rival. So Tennessee, Alabama, Florida, anything that touches the state, man, should feel like a rivalry, obviously in state as well. So our hope is we're back here for we're not overreacting about a Sunday evening about the score, but we're rejoicing in the fact of where in the hell was this offense and wow, this defense. And so I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a good game. Any Saturday night where we can watch the dogs play is always a good Saturday night. So Rich, man, really enjoyed it, man. Dog fans, come out, wear black. Remember the post says no white, no red, wear black, be loud. There's 4 things to do, not 3. It ain't wear black, don't wear red, don't wear white, and then just come in there and be a part of and warm your seat. It's don't wear white, don't wear red, wear black, and be loud. So be loud. For myself, for Rich, man, Fish, we missed you tonight, man. Had some technical difficulties. I'm sure he would have had some really great info on this game, but I know for Fish and just him in the last few weeks, he thinks the same thing, man. He wants to see really great line play, man, defense to show up, and obviously, Carson to have his best game because we know he can have one. We know what he's capable of, but hopefully it'll produce a Georgia win, and we're moving on to 2 steps closer to the playoffs. So for myself, for Adam Fisher, who wasn't with us tonight, and for Rich, man, have a great weekend. Georgia, hope we get a Georgia win, and as always, go Dogs.
Go Dogs.